Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and if you like Rostermania, Christmas may have come rather early. 3 teams considering making changes, key among which of course OpTic Arcitys. They might be looking to bring him in among other options they are considering right now, but if they were to try and get Arcitys off LAG, if that's even possible, who would they replace on the team? Would Dashy go? Would iLLeY go? What's going to happen over the coming days? But the key theme being that this OpTic team is probably chalked. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to dive into. First of all, confirmation from the subliners yesterday that Major 4 will not be hosted there. They, we were expecting maybe a reason to be given, but no, due to a variety of circumstances, who knows what they could potentially be. But regardless, subliners will not be hosting a major. There will need to be another host for Major 4. Donny Teb even says Vegas Major would go crazy. Totally agree with that one, but will Vegas Legion actually try and do that, right? Will they actually apply and be part of the potential number of teams that might be involved in trying to get a spot there? That's a possibility. Now, we talked yesterday that the Florida Mutineers might well have actually been the front runners to get this seat or to get this spot for Major 4, but as Jacob Hale says yesterday, the Mutineers have officially declined the opportunity to host Major 4 in Florida. So one more name ticked off the list. Definitely interesting, like if all the teams decline the opportunity, then what are they going to do with Major 4? I guess the CDL has to host it at their own venue, kind of like what they did at Raleigh, because yeah, the event is set, but it's not said where it's going to be yet. So that's definitely a controversial circumstance. Now, as I said, Atlanta, Seattle, and even London would be a key bunch of possibilities for where it could go. And Nicola actually found this other was rather interesting. Not sure this is related, but just one thing to look at. So Esports Engine, the people that usually run the production for the CDL, have put up a couple of posts in the last 48 hours or so, when this was tweeted only 21 hours ago, for a production manager in London and a live broadcast producer in London for a project-based position. Now, Esports Engine do so many different events, this could be anything, but the timing is kind of interesting that there's rumours that the subliners may just going to be cancelled. There's rumours it's going to go to London, and around that exact time, Esports Engine are posting some, potential job postings there in London, presumably for something in a few months' time. But Bryce says here that more than likely they would just take their current team over, which is true, but maybe there's circumstances we're not aware of. So, just one thing to look at. I don't think there's really too much in it, but I guess we'll have to go and see. I don't really want to get too optimistic as yet. But let's talk about the Rostermania stuff then, because wow, it was all kicking off last night. I think, look, I'd heard some rumours over the last few days. There was quite a lot happening. We talked last night that a change within the OpTic camp was potentially going to happen after Major 2, but apparently it's going to happen much sooner than that. So that's what I said, right? Is like, if you wait till Major 2, who knows if you're going to get the opportunities. There is now a good, 2-3 week period where the teams aren't doing anything, where potentially changes could be made. Now, it starts off with this actually from Karma, who mentioned the fact that this season, Las Vegas Legion gave him an offer to play for them. Remarkable that Karma hasn't played in so long and is still held in such high esteem by players and teams and general managers, that even though Karma, who you well know, would probably not put any time in practice and all this type of stuff and wouldn't exactly be waking up early in the morning to grind Call of Duty, the team still kind of wanted him. He actually declined an offer and was considering accepting an offer from Legion to, I guess, team up with Clayster, right, which had been quite the remarkable state of affairs, but of course that didn't happen. Now, this was the first tweet that really kicked things off yesterday from Paul Exis. Here he goes, kind of, taking a knock and kind of getting on with it. Now, from the tweets in the last few days, I think it's been relatively clear that Paul Exis is probably getting dropped from London, and that is exactly what we believe is happening. Now, Scraps might be the man to come through instead. So Scraps, of course, Matty Marshall with his twin brother Waskin, they were in the league for quite a few years, and they stepped away, and then, Waskin and Scraps did content, and Scraps has been trying to make the return. Hasn't exactly done anything crazy so far in challenges this year, but nonetheless does have good name value as a player, has good history with Zero and others on the FaZe clan team, even back in Black Ops 4, and the rumour is that Ravens are going to say, you know what, Scraps, let's bring you back in. Now, whether this is actually justified, I don't know. Like, Paul X, I've always thought was a solid player. I never thought he was anything spectacular, and definitely many people have said, maybe understandably, that his LAN performances the last couple of years have left a lot to be desired, so you can understand London making a change here. Whether Scraps is the right guy to get is a question, just because there are other candidates also, the Elevate guys that did so well at the major, Gizmo, Harry on that team that were on London before, they could be ideal guys to come in instead. Not going to be the case though. Scraps, we believe, is going to be the man, but it's still not guaranteed. So, we'll see what happens with Scraps' ex-teammates here, but rumour has it that Paul X has already sorted out a potential challengers team, so that seems almost guaranteed to be the case right now. But even, as Gizmo says right here, the eyes emoji, implying that something might be going on with Gizmo, or maybe it's not, who knows. But yeah, if it's not London for Gizmo, where else could it potentially be? Because he was one of the standout players, I thought, for the major from the challenger side. Now, this is spicy as ever from the former New York subliners guys. I know full well that subliners camp last season did not get on particularly well, especially with Porlex, like the Porlex and Crimsix thing, like they were not big fans of, certainly Hydra. Some of the stuff that was happening there behind the scenes from the Porlex side compared to the rest of the guys in the team, it was not a pretty state of affairs, and there was even some crazy drama that I've heard about that I don't believe is public information. Now, we can get some insight onto what might be going on there, because Hydra tweets this out, like as soon as it's rumored that Porlex is getting dropped, Hydra tweets out the kind of crying laughing emoji, and it's the same exact thing that Kismet does right here. You guys might not be able to quite see it, but I'll put it on the screen so you guys can see what he said as well. Both of these deleted rather quickly afterwards, but yeah, nonetheless, just goes to show that maybe they're rather thinking, yeah, no surprise you got dropped, Paul, based on the drama they had last season, who knows. Now, the big talking point to me though is because I was like, okay, if London are making a change, if LAG are dropping Neptune for one of their academy players, it's like, that's not really Rostermania, it's kind of expected moves. Where it really gets interesting is the OpTic stuff. So LAG also expected to make a change to their lineup, but it may be more than one change, especially if somehow OpTic can get hold of Arcitys. Now, this is not something that I really expected to be possible, just because LAG locked him in for a 3-year deal. They paid probably $300,000 to $400,000 for his buyout from FaZe, and now OpTic might have to pay even more than that to get him off that team and bring him over to the OpTic Texas lineup. The only way that that might make sense to me is if there's some sort of trade involved and they can send either iLLeY or Dashy, or both, who knows, back the other way. Now, CDL Rostermania mentions this last night, that indeed he's heard from a couple of different sources that OpTic hold an interest in getting Arcitys from Los Angeles Guerrillas. Does raise the question, like, why, what a mistake it was to run it back from the OpTic side last season. They'd blown it up, they were ready to commit to the blow up, and they were ready to make the changes. They didn't do it, and now they've got to do it now. They've wasted one event of the season, and it's just an absolute disaster. And I can't see, with all this stuff coming out and with all the rumours of the internal drama that's going on, like, I can't see this team just miraculously getting back together and winning champs with this four. There's just no way it happens at this point. The chemistry must just be shot in that camp, and especially with all this stuff coming to light last night, surely things are going to be changing around. Now, Ben J. Nassim as well mentioned this and basically said that he'd heard that OpTic were considering like many different options, and he's heard that from a good couple of different sources. So, you know, something is going to happen. Whether Arcitys could actually be the case, whether they can come to an agreement, the difficulty is for OpTic is now, like, you know, it seems to me they've committed to a change. There's no way this team stays together any longer. Something's going to happen there, and they surely can't run it back again after more drama has emerged. But if they can't get Arcitys, if that deal falls through or whatever, then what do they actually do? It does raise the question there. But to me, the interesting question is, if Arcitys comes through, who gets dropped from the team? Who's replaced? Okay, Scump and Shotzzy are going to stay, that much is obvious. iLLeY and Dashy are unclear. They were going to get dropped before. They obviously had good reasons for trying to drop them last off-season. Those reasons haven't been solved, clearly, after the tragic result they had at Major 1, so something's got to give. So, would iLLeY go? iLLeY is like the, if you had to like just choose one player that you'd probably get rid of, I know that many people would say iLLeY, and if you drop iLLeY for Arcitys, okay, you do get some upside there, but is that really enough to change around the kind of, well, the direction of this team, just because Arcitys has usually been on the main AR? Yes, he can run a flex, I think, more effectively than Dashy, but Dashy was so good in 5v5 when he could kind of run the flex role, the more aggressive AR role, and not so good on the main. In 4v4, I don't know if that works so much, because you're relying on Dashy then potentially to put it on SMG, because sometimes 3 SMGs on certain maps can be viable in this title. So plenty of questions, I think, if you do bring in Arcitys for iLLeY, because then you've got to figure out the roles, and whether Arcitys is then on the flex just straight up in place of iLLeY, or what happens there, bit of a question mark. And if you bring in Arcitys for Dashy, which seems to be the way it's going, just because there was these comments that were made on stream last night from Scump, actually. He went live, and look, he didn't deny any of it, right? He didn't go out and say, no guys, it's all rumours, we're not doing anything, we're sticking it out. He didn't say any of that, so implies to me something's happening. But he also talked about iLLeY and the fact that he was kind of frustrated with shooting bodies and getting beaten, and yeah, I don't know, he kind of ignored all the stuff about Dashy, but was commenting a bit on iLLeY, so it makes me kind of think that Dashy's been the one to get dropped, but it's kind of tough to say.
Like, did we yell at him for shooting bodies? Nah, it was actually comedy, bro. Ender was like, dude, I shouldn't have shot bodies, man. Like, he was... Yo, he was actually tweaking. He's like, oh, you know how Ender is, bro? He's like, oh, man, I shouldn't have shot his body. Dude, I was crying. I was like, bro, you're good. That's oh, my God, dude.
Now, people were noticing here that Dashy doesn't have OpTic in his bio anymore. I believe this has been the case ever since he got dropped initially back in the off-season, and since he's been brought back, he never put it back in his bio, so I believe that's what happened here, and it's not something new. But, yeah, nonetheless, what do you think? Is a one-man change enough for OpTic? Is a minus Dashy plus Arcitys? Because, like, if you go minus Dashy plus Arcitys, you're getting an AR combo, which just, like, doesn't have that much slaying power, let's be honest here. Like, the top AR combos in the league, the Scrappy and Insights and others, are more than likely going to eat up, you know, Arcitys and iLLeY alive in terms of AR pure slaying power. So I don't really think you can get rid of Dashy and bring in Arcitys without some other changes and bring in, you know, like a star flex player. Like, if you had like a Sib or something, then you're doing fine. But if you don't, then you're in a bit of a predicament. So, yeah, what do you guys expect to happen here? It seems clear to me that OpTic are not long for this world. Let's be honest, even Shotzzy, you know, he's been tweeting various things out, kind of implying that, you know, he's kind of chilling. And almost the guy they need is Crimsix, right? I know that they won't bring Crim back, but it would be hilarious to see. And we did even joke in the off-season, what about running it back with the Dynasty for one more year? And, okay, they might come last every event or have a bit of a struggle, but it would be hilarious to watch because, I mean, yeah, what do you guys expect for the future of this team? Is it too late for OpTic to recover now? They've got to do something, right? Arcitys actually tweets this out as well, kind of implying that something might be happening there, but yeah, what would you guys do if you're in the OpTic camp? Because you could make a two-man change, which might be necessary. They probably should have done it before, right? They could have got Cammy and Hydra, they could have put Scump on the flex, they could have done something, they decided not to. They're now living in a situation where Hydra's locked up, there are other players that are theoretically locked up, and maybe they can still get them, because I think Arcitys even mentioned himself, he wanted a team with Scump after OpTic had decided to run it back. Arcitys then was in the drop situation, he reached out to Scump and said, hey, should we run it back or something, like they did. Of course, they played on Chicago Huntsman a few years ago, but at that point, OpTic was sticking, Arcitys went for the LAG route, and you'd have thought that with such a phenomenal long-term deal, that would kind of be it, right, and Arcitys would be there for some time. Apparently, that's not guaranteed at all, he could potentially move on, but if that is the case, then if you do bring in Arcitys, let's say for iLLeY, can you keep Dashy as well? Do you need to change that up? Just because if you're trying to get Arcitys, maybe you do need to send iLLeY and Dashy both the other direction, who knows what sort of trade they can come up with there, but then OpTic would also need to find another player to maybe replace, you know, the star flex position if Arcitys is going to be the main. So many questions, tough to call what's going to happen here, but I think the key takeaway for now is, and we'll talk more of the implications on what this team could look like going forwards, but the key talking point is that this OpTic team surely is not going to be able to stay together going forwards. They were so close to making a change in the offseason, well, they did make a change, then they run it back, which seems like a massive mistake at this point in hindsight, of course, because now after failing at the first event, they're now thinking, well, we've probably got to blow it up anyway and bring in potentially many other options that are out there for far more expensive than they would have been able to, well, they would have had to pay. In the offseason, they could have got Hydra on a free, right? He had no buyouts, he was an unrestricted free agent, but, you know, that would have been a controversial move at the time, right, if they'd boarded Hydra, given what everyone was saying at the time about the work ethic and stuff, like, that would have been a controversial move, the fans wouldn't have been so much of a fan of it, but the same story was happening when Formal joined the team back in 2000 and late 2014, going into Advanced Warfare. The fans weren't a big fan of the Formal move for reasons of his personality at the time. Turns out that was a rather good one. Maybe they should have done the same thing with Hydra. And just to mention real quick, from that New York side, Wardy actually tweets out here the eyes emoji as well, because he's the sub for the subliners, and of course with the way their team's going, he's probably not going to be a starter anytime soon, so I do wonder if there's anything that he could potentially get an offer from. Sky says we're going to miss you, which might mean that he's going back to the UK for Christmas, which might be what that probably means, but if it's not, then maybe he's joining another team, who really knows. But very much enjoy your thoughts in the comment section below, hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new, take care, and I'll see you next time.